Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, The State of Account-Based Marketing in Healthcare Technology. I am your host for today. I'm Adam Chirinas, and I'd like to greet my guests, Stacey and Samantha. Please say hi and tell me who you are and where you work.
Hi, thanks, Adam. I'm Stacey Sand. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at GetWell. We are a digital patient engagement company serving health systems, hospitals, and health plans across the country. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Hello, my name is Samantha Downing. I'm Senior Vice President of Global Marketing. For Koa Health, we offer full care continuum mental health support for employer health plan groups for improved workforce mental health population services.
I'm so grateful to you for joining me here today. And thank you to everybody out there who's watching, both on online and through LinkedIn Live. Today's webinar, we're going to go through the study, share the results with you, and most importantly, we're going to get insights from Stacey and Samantha. Now, Stacey and Samantha are long-time B2B marketing executives with deep experience in healthcare. And the reason why I invited them, and I'm so grateful for them for joining me today, is that they've got a lot of experience in long sales cycle type companies and businesses, and they're some of the few people in healthcare who have got a lot of experience in ABM, and so they're going to be commenting throughout, and I just can't wait to hear their insights. We want to answer your questions throughout, so you've got the comments box to chime in, and we're going to share how to get the study, and at the end of it, there are a whole bunch of actions that you can take to get started. We're going to make this as actionable as possible. So some housekeeping things. Yes, this is being recorded. I'm sure I'm going to be asking that question. I'll be getting that question in the chat at least 3 times. But yes, it's being recorded. Use the chat. We want your questions, and we're going to try not just to keep them till the end, but sort of bring in a few of them throughout the presentation. Just put in the chat where you're located and where you are on your ABM journey. And by the way, if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, you can just put it in the comments. It works like chat. So if you're on LinkedIn Live, put it in the comments, and it'll pop up in our little chat window over there. So who are you? Where are you coming from? And then where are you on your ABM journey? Come on, let's see your comments. The recording and the report will go out tomorrow, although I am going to share the link at the end of this, but so you'll have plenty of opportunities to get hold of this. Just a little bit about there's substantially 2 organizations presenting today. One is my company, Health Launchpad. We're a health tech B2B marketing firm. And so in addition to all we do is health tech, in addition to that, our superpower is account-based marketing. It's all we've specialized in that since we started the company in 2020. And what we have is a team of experts who have been in your shoes. All of our people have been sort of frontline in marketing roles, business roles, and most of them in healthcare. I won't go through all of our clients. We're privileged to work with some fantastic clients across the healthcare ecosystem. The other presenting organization is our sister organization, which is independent, called the Health Tech Marketing Network. Health Tech Marketing Network is a place for senior health tech marketing leaders to connect with each other, learn from each other, and grow their careers. And Stacey and Samantha are both part of that network, and they're going to talk a little bit more about that later on, in case you're interested in finding out more about it. Okay, so the state of ABM healthcare technology. We're going to talk about how ABM is adopted. We've got a little bit of data on that. We're going to share a lot about the strategies, the tools, and the technologies that are being used, and what some of the biggest challenges are, how to scale ABM, and then how to get started, which is going to be, I think, the issue for most of us. And then there are some specific actionable next steps that you'll be able to take. Okay, so let's look at the data. Where are we in ABM adoption? So we surveyed across the health tech marketing network. So the health tech marketing network is a group of about 100, and I think about 140 directors, VPs, and CMOs in health tech marketing organizations. And we polled them and got 40 responses on where they are in their ABM journey. So 5% said ABM is not a priority. The largest number, so close to a third, said considering ABM but haven't a plan yet. The next largest group is the people who are moving into action this year. So an ABM pilot is planned this year. So what we're seeing is 2/3 are either coming to the start line or thinking about coming to the start line. A full third, so 22% and 10% respectively, 11% respectively, have already got started, with most of them being in the sort of first couple of years, and then 10% been at it for more than 2 years. I think there was only one respondent, maybe it was one or two respondents, who said we tried it but decided not to pursue it any further. So I find that encouraging. By the way, I've also look at quite a lot of data in other markets, and there's a great study put out by Sixth Sense which benchmarks across B2B. They don't really cover healthcare that much, and healthcare is probably like 1 to 2 years behind other industries, which I don't think is a surprise to too many people. Okay, now, hey, so Stacey and Samantha, tell us about your, where you guys are on your ABM journey, and tell us a little bit about your ABM adoption, how that's gone for you. So Stacey, you want to take that first?
Sure. So I think over the last 2 companies that I've worked for, I've been working in an ABM environment for about 2 to 3 years. And I've used 2 different platforms. Both of those were in health tech marketing roles here at GetWell, as well as my previous employer that was in patient education. And, in healthcare, we're sometimes a niche provider, and you really need to focus on the few. So this became a necessary strategy, especially at other companies I've worked at, where you're not trying to sell to every hospital or every health system or every health plan, but ones that have very distinct needs and share common goals. So been lucky enough to work for organizations that supported ABM as a marketing and sales philosophy, as well as investment in the technology to help us do it at a really high level.
Thank you.
I will add on to that, and I want to zero in on what Stacey just said, is that it's a philosophy, and that chances are when you have your organization, specifically the sales team, jumping up and down saying, we've got to do ABM, we've got to do ABM. It's really a misunderstanding of what ABM actually is. And more than likely, if you're an expert in marketing, you're already doing ABM, because we know that, especially in the healthcare market, buying decisions are done by buyer groups. It's not just one person. And if you were to Google what is account-based marketing, the first word is account. And that you've already made that shift to focus in on an account level and leveraging the technology that you have available, whether it's the Marketo, whether it's Sixth Sense or Demand Base or Salesforce, to personalize at the buyers within those buying groups for those long cycles, and doing omni-channel, meeting them where they're at for each of the buyer groups, whether it's your CFO, CDO, COO. So pat on the back, because more than likely you've already taken this philosophy and you might be doing ABM and just don't know it yet.
I love that. Thank you. I 100% agree. I think I find that the work that we do with clients is quite often they're doing stuff in an ABM-y way without really realizing it. So I appreciate that comment. All right. One of the biggest reasons why everybody is moving towards ABM is the buyer journey. And so this was some research that we shared with our sponsor, HIMSS, at the beginning of the year. And according to HIMSS, what we're seeing is, large buying groups, right? 6 to 10 organizations report that 5 or more people are part of, the majority of organizations are saying the buying groups are 5 plus, with 27% reporting that there are 10 or more people in the buying groups that they're selling to. I thought the sort of the useful benchmark is that the vast majority of companies say that sales cycles are at least 13 months, and 40% have 24-month sales cycles. So, the natural conclusion that once you understand ABM, you realize that you really have to go that way. You'll see as we go through this, it makes a lot of sense. So we asked the group, and the way that we did this was we had a couple of sessions, and I think we had over 40 people attend both those sessions, the vast majority of whom, were either exploring ABM or some of whom had been doing it for a year or two. For the people who've been doing it, so that kind of group that's about a third, what they said was that there's no one size fits all. Each organization has got a different nuance in how they're actually approaching it, because it's driven, by their goals. One of the recurring themes is the notion of taking baby steps, and we'll talk more about that later on. I love this quote from Kathy Finley, who's also a member of the Health Tech Marketing Network. It's important to set realistic expectations for ABM programs, recognizing that results may not be immediate and that it may take time to see significant impact on revenue and growth. So, Samantha, do you want to comment on that at all?
Sure. I think one of the things when you talk about the one size fits all approach is really trying to understand what your success criteria is if you're talking about an ABM, and what those successful KPIs are. And I'll give you an example. When a few companies ago that I worked at, the sales team wanted to come and, were asking me, we need to do an ABM. And I said, well, what is your objective? I'd love to help you. Tell me more about your objective. And their response was, we've got to speed up closing the deals in quarter. And I said, that's not where ABM actually fits. I can help you with some deal-based marketing, but that's not the intent and goal of ABM. What are those KPIs that are realistic? If you're looking at being asked, well, we want a higher percentage of close won marketing opportunities, that's not really where ABM fits, because marketing is one-to-many accounts, sales is one-to-one. But if you're trying to do more lead generation and looking at specific net new C-suite contacts within a set account, that's a great KPI. If you're looking at trying to lower your cost per lead or having more MQL to SQL conversion, those are great KPIs. And that's just a start. Those are nice KPIs, but how do those match up to the company objectives, and how are they in that entire buyer journey? Because we know as marketers, we're in the buyer journey of discovery, early learn, late learn, possibly consider, and then we have to turn that over to the salespeople to work that deal. Stacy?
Yeah, I would say that number one is the baby steps have to be taken together with your marketing team and your sales team. So there is definitely sometimes a misunderstanding of ABM means, oh, I get a marketer for every account. No, that is not what ABM is. But it is something where, baby steps can mean a small group of accounts. So again, focus on the few, but making sure they all have the same goal. So I see that sometimes in the planning process, sales and marketing teams may struggle because a sales rep may say, I have one account that I'm really trying to break into, but the purpose of ABM is to scale personalized surround sound tactics, efforts, messaging through your channels to reach many who have the same ICP or fit the same criteria. So that's one thing I always say to my teams is, as the sales teams suggest accounts or they nominate accounts, make sure they all have a common goal for them. Is it a product that you want them to buy? Is it that you want to expand personas in that account where, for us, we have great relationships with the nurse leaders, but we're trying to break into perhaps the healthcare marketing teams at those target accounts. So trying to make sure, whether it's 2 accounts or 20, that they have the same goal in mind. Otherwise, you really won't be able to scale anything, and you'll just end up being an account-based marketer instead of doing account-based marketing.
That's very interesting. Explain that when I get that notion. I've never heard that notion. The difference between doing account-based marketing versus being an account-based marketer.
Well, I think Samantha's probably encountered this as well. So sometimes when you say account-based marketing to, like, let's say a novice audience, they say, okay, great. So that means that for this account, I've got a meeting coming up. You can help me put together slides specifically for this account. No, I mean, in marketing, we run oftentimes lean. We have to be a one-to-many kind of function in the organization. So it's helping them understand, say, well, that's a target account, but how many of your peers, and this is where planning as a team and not planning with just one sales rep at a time, how many of you share a client or a prospect that shares that ICP? Are they your ideal client profile? Are we all trying to push the same product to them? Let's group them together and drive a campaign. So I think that when you hear account-based, if you're used to selling and owning an account, you think that now it's super personalized to your one account. No, what we want to do is find like accounts, group them together, and deploy so that it can feel very one-to-one, but it's not one-to-one on the mechanics on the marketing side.
Well, and I think that leads very nicely into this, which is, anybody who's sort of read anything about ABM will know that there's this kind of notion of different types of ABM. There's one-to-many, which is, dealing with multiple hundreds of accounts, maybe even, low thousands. There's some debate. There's a lot of debate within the ABM world. Is that really ABM? I don't know. I don't really care. But then one to few is, I think, a lot of what you're talking about there, Stacey, which is the notion of clusters of maybe tens or a few hundred accounts that have something in common, and you're doing different campaigns to each segment. Is that to kind of reflect with the way that you guys think about that?
Yeah. Few can be relative to your overall TAM or SAM, but definitely grouping. And I think one-to-one is appropriate way if you have a key account structure. You may have an account where cross-sell and upsell is your goal. You're already in one foot in the door, but you want to expand. That's a great use case for applying the ABM principles on a one-to-one basis, because you have to influence other members of buying committees that sit outside of the core buying committee that you've already influenced for a sale. So that's also a long game, right? Like, you don't win over and land and expand a strategic key account in a day. And that's the other thing I caution. ABM is not instant gratification, like you said before. It takes time to influence all the different personas of the buying committee to a level where they are researching you, they believe they want to be a champion, and they're ready to make a decision.
And I could talk a little bit about moving the conversation out of we want to hit as many, ABM one-to-many. A company I was at, a wonderful sales leader came and said, my team wants to do ABM. And I again asked him what his objectives were. And he said, well, we need to upsell our big strategic accounts, and then we need support for these opportunities that are known in the pipeline that we want to win. And I said, okay, those are actually, neither one is ABM. You're asking to do strategic account support, and you're asking to do deal-based marketing. And so he and I came together virtually, created definitions for each of those, right? What is a criteria? What is a strategic account? It has to be in the top 10. It has to have X amount of yearly revenue. And whatever they're trying to expand has to meet the threshold of a large deal. Same with DBM. They have to be net new, and they have to have been more than 1.5 million of whatever the deal is. And then I further said, listen, the lift for a strategic account support or DBM is the same as a larger integrated omni-channel. The lift is the same. I still have to create new content, new messaging, et cetera. So I can only do X per calendar year, and I can only do X in quarter. So I need your sales team, you guys, to come and prioritize in quarter one. What are the ones? And I needed at least 3 a 1 quarter advance notice, right? So that we could actually move the dial. the DBM worked very, very well. We wound up having a close to 40% win rate for those deals that were supported by marketing DBM, and we didn't do more than 6 a year. And the average rate for our close over all of the opportunities, the pipeline, was around 19%. So it showed success.
Explain that notion again, DBM, deal-based marketing.
Yeah.
Is there any nuance there, difference versus one-to-one? I'm not sure I'm fully clear, actually.
So deal-based marketing is a known deal, and it usually, you need to agree upon this with your sales team, but it has to hit a certain stage in the sales funnel. So not prospecting, not possibly interest, but they've asked for RFP, or they've asked for demo, or you are one of the vendors that they are considering. So it has to be enough in the stage that you've got at least over a 30% chance of winning the business.
Got it. So, one of the points on the slide is the notion that more advanced ABMers like yourself are using kind of mixed models, like different models. But I think there's there's another dimension here, which is time in it, or time, which is what stage a prospect is in its deal. So in addition to how you segment it based on sort of size of account clusters, there's also sort of like where they are in their deal stage. And I think the way that we're increasingly thinking about ABM is, one-to-many is kind of like figuring out who might be in market. So you're actually using advertising to get buying signals, one-to-few to warm them up, and then one-to-one to close them, and deal-based marketing to really close them.
Absolutely. Think of the sales funnel, and that ABM, the one-to-many, is really for top of funnel. One-to-few is the middle funnel, and one-to-one is that bottom funnel. We did a one-to-many in a company for mid-market. We're trying to break into the mid-market health plan. It's very difficult to have a full view of all of your potential prospects, where they are, where are they in the contract with the current client? Are they out? Are they going to be out for bid in the RFP? Have we missed that? So you have to do that kind of awareness part, which is one-to-many. And our KPIs were completely different. We were targeting approximately 150 mid-market health plans, and our goals were 300 net new CFO and COO contacts. And then we wanted to have 20 million of pipeline. That was it. That was all we were responsible from a marketing perspective. The rest of it, of when they closed, to what Stacey said, this is a long game. And that's the hard part, is you do have to hand it off and have, I would say, trust in your sales team to follow through for the long game as well.
It's great. Thank you. All right. Great quote here from Susan Roth, who works at CTG, where she's been standing up ABM there, but also has a lot of experience in ABM from a previous approach. So I think, and this sort of, some companies use a tiered approach to account prioritization, focusing on a small number of high-value strategic accounts that receive the most personalized, intensive engagement, whilst also targeting a larger set of best fit customers with more scalable ABM tactics. I think that really just echoes what you guys have been saying. Okay, let's move on to technology. So, a question we often get asked is, do I need to go out and go buy demand-based to do ABM? And I thought one of the most encouraging and validating things was that most of the companies in the survey, who took part in the discussion, said their platform of choice for marketing automation, platform of choice for doing ABM, is to actually start with marketing automation. So they're using that. They're basically kind of doing it semi-manually, which is, the notion you both talked about earlier, which is get the philosophy right, get the basics in place, use your existing tools to at least prove it out, and then we'll get on to the ABM platforms in a minute. But basically creating ABM workflows within the marketing automation, CRM systems, and content management platforms. In fact, there's also a comment here which I love from Michael Campagna, saying that one-to-one ICPs are great for microsite ABM platforms. So maybe ABM platforms play a place there, but you could also do those. You can kind of hand paint them as well. So perspective on on that. Samantha, do you want to start with that?
Absolutely. So if I were to walk away from this, or have whoever's listening walk away, if you were to do one pivot and you're talking about ABM, the biggest pivot that you want to make is automation. This is, to me, what really makes truly an ABM, is setting up the automation and building the campaign in advance with your segmentation and your personalized tracks, so that it automates it on the back end, so that you're not looking every email, how many, and then writing the next email. Like it gets automated. HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, Seismic, they're all sorts. If you have one of these three, all of these are plug and play and interconnect, and are able to move back and forth. So as you're pulling data from your CRM system and you're running them, it automates into Salesforce, and you create criteria, and you can go ahead and automate that process. That is, to me, the power of, when you look at account-based marketing, is you can have salespeople with 3 accounts that are on that list, and they're able to see which of the buying group personas, whether it's CFO, CEO, are engaged. And it's automating across the board in an omni-channel way. That's the biggest pivot. You do not need to spend a significant amount of investment to actually automate your marketing campaigns.
Great. I'll tell you what, let's move on to talk about the ABM platform. So you both are sort of part of a small handful, I think maybe sort of 10%, maybe 15% of the companies in the survey who are actually using a demand-based, a 6 Sense. We use a platform called Propensity, which I love. It's a sort of light, inexpensive. Doesn't do everything that demand-based does, but it's pretty good. But the kind of key takeaway was that the primary uses of an ABM platform, at least when you're getting started, is intent data. So your third-party intent data, so figuring out who's in market, and then using it as a targeted ad network. And so, display social media video ads in a really, really targeted way. Like with Terminus, you can even do, direct connected TV, where you can target somebody in their living room if you really want to do that. And so it's all about sort of using that to reach key decision makers with very, very personalized messaging. Stacey, you want to comment on that?
Sure. There's 2 things that come to my mind with the experiences I've had with Demandbase and Rollworks, which are ABM platforms that I've used at different companies. So who's in market really helps you narrow down. It's not a spray and pray marketing landscape anymore. We're trying to do very hyper personalized targeting, but in order to know who to target, it's not just that they fit your ICP, it's also that they're actively researching. So that buyer intent is like a decoder ring for being able to see who's truly in market, which accounts are in market, who should we sprawl on first. And one thing we're doing with our ABM platform is we have a spiking intent dashboard. So if we see spiking activity on our site from a target account, we're not waiting until they kind of raise their hand. We are able to actually go move on them much more quickly. And then one thing I will say about Demandbase that I've really enjoyed in the past, they have something called the deal story. And what's nice about that is your sales reps may say to you, this account ghosted me. I have sent 3 emails. I've offered them demos. You can see in Salesforce all my activity. But what Demandbase and any of these platforms is picking up is, well, they might be ghosting you, sales rep, but they are actually engaging with our website with videos. They're filling out forms. They're doing things on our site, both formal raising of the hand, like filling out a form, or they're cookied. So now we see their website activity on other things. They're not done with our company. Maybe they're just still doing research. They're not really sales ready. And that's a stage we use inside of Rollworks right now, is we determine based on those ad programs with conversions and clicks and impressions, when is that account sales ready? Because sometimes they're just not ready when we are, and we have to wait, but we need to watch for those signals.
If I could, I think what Stacey said is, and I had an opportunity in 2018 to work with Demandbase, and it is amazing what they're able to do from a social listening. I am more and more, and maybe it's just because I'm getting old and bitter, but the idea of MQLs drives me nuts, because you do your standard, has to do a score of this or a score of that. But our buyers, especially in healthcare, are so engaged and they are doing their research way in advance. And so you may have a 2-month or a 3-month or a 40-point criteria where they've done these 4 things. They've already made their decision because they're doing these 3 or 4 things with you while they're doing it with all the other vendors. They're busy researching your website as well. These companies that are on this slide are able to look and do social listening or targeted listening through the display, and can in real time or near real time, I'm talking instantly, 24 or 48 hours, you can go in and you can see, oh, this company saw our website, but I also see they're engaging with 3 other competitors. We need to start sending them and dripping them more information or nurturing them or putting them in this other pathway, because it may not be a 40 MQL, but they've downloaded something. Let's hook in a little bit more.
There's a lovely comment here from Jose Garcia, who's I think in Barcelona. I noticed this as account might ghost me, but then come to my webinars and then open up to me later. So yeah, it is magical actually, the way that you can just see them coming towards you. And we may get into this later, but it changes the way you work with the SDRs, right? I mean, it's very interesting. Okay, now data. So, one of the consistent themes is that data and getting the data right is a major challenge. So you've got to ensure that the account, the contact data is clean, it's up to date, it's accurate. And many cite that when it comes to scaling ABM, that's one of the biggest issues. And it actually, one of the nasty surprises is all what you need to do in terms of, data hygiene. Quote here from Mike Campagna. Data quality and accuracy are critical considerations for ABM success. Companies need to ensure that their account and contact data is clean, complete, properly segmented to support effective personalization and targeting. Yeah, well said, Mike. And then, the other thing, which is a headache, is then you've got to integrate across platforms. They've all got open AIs and Zapier and all that great stuff, but it's not open AI, I mean, open APIs. But, it is a challenge, creating a unified view, which is what you're trying to get, right? So you're trying to create this accurate view of what's going on with these accounts that you're targeting, particularly when data is spread across multiple systems. And what you want to be able to do is actually see how they, how these accounts are interacting with you in your advertising, on your site, in your social channels, got an email, all of that. You want to see an aggregate view of that. And what we see is actually some of the people in the group that we talked to said that they're actually turning to CDPs like Klaviyo to do that. So, there is a reason why ABM is expensive, and one of them is, once you go out, you get demand based, that's expensive. Then you've got to buy a whole bunch of other tools to get it to work with everything else, and then spend money on making sure the data is cleaned up. So it's not a small undertaking. All right, intent data. So this was a big topic for discussion. So just to kind of, as to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing, this in 3 types of intent data: first party, second party, third party. So first party intent data is buying signals that happen on your channels, own channels, primarily your website. That's first party intent data. May actually be the most important. Second is, and actually this is one of the many people don't think about, is the second party intent data sites like Capterra, G2, and Elion Health, which is a new one exclusively in healthcare, which you should check out. And that you can buy leads from them, right? And that you can buy leads from that are related to, that tell you who might be in market and evaluating your category. And then the really sexy stuff is the third party intent data. So these are buying signals that are aggregated across thousands of different websites, B2B websites, for tens of thousands of different topics. And that comes to you from companies like Bombora and ZoomInfo, and then there are a bunch of others out there as well. So that's that's what intent data is. the verdict seems to be out. So first party intent data, useful but limited. Why is it limited? It's limited because you can only get partial data on the accounts visiting your website. So you may only get 20, 30% view of those, and you're also getting it at the account level. There's only, there are a few companies right now like R2B that allow you to see individuals, but the vast majority of the sources out there are at the account level. Nobody actually talked about comparison sites, interestingly, in our discussion. Most maybe have, just seem to support the value, the promise of third party, but there was a lot of frustration with, what with the reality of what you can and can't do with intent data. So Samantha, do you want to talk a little bit about? Do you want to lead off here? Talk a bit about intent data.
I think, my point of view on this with intent data is just more and more with regulatory large companies that I've worked for, even small companies. Maybe they're based in the US, but they're selling outside. Mm-hmm. And when you start to think about GDPR and you start to think about all of the closing in of the cookies and all of the, regulations, when does somebody's third party become your first party, or your first party become their third party? And I have always talked with your security team. I have come up and we have in companies invested large amounts of money only to find out that because it's a third party, there is limitation and we cannot actually do outbound email or, whatever we were wanting to do with this hook in from Salesforce, because it violated GDPR rules, and it violated cookie rules. And even though they opted into our email, using that vendor made them a third party because we had to share it with them. Therefore, they hadn't opted in. So we got stuck in a really bad situation. So always, I think form fill is always the safest to go so that you can get them in and then automate them in the system. But just always talk with your security team about the intent data. We're sharing sensitive data.
Stacey, what's been your experience with intent data?
So there's definitely internal concern anytime you talk about hooking visitors to your website, especially if you have a website that may serve as a portal for your customers, and you're in healthcare. You have to be very careful about patients who come to your site, right or wrong, what you're doing with them. But one thing, my piece of advice for those of you out there looking at cookies is invest in a really good cookie consent manager tool. So that was number one. Before we could even invest in an ABM platform, we had to make sure that we were doing everything, ticking and tying on best practices in privacy and doing it where it could be personalized depending on where the visitor comes from. So we brought on a tool called Osano. They definitely feel like a best of breed platform for cookie consent. But when you come to your IT team and you say, we're bringing on a tool that not only manages our cookies, but personalizes the cookie notice languages, required language based on if they're in California or if they're coming from Europe or from Canada, that takes a huge burden, not just off the marketing team, the technology team, but also your legal team who is watching this like a hawk. So make sure that, you get what you pay for with cookie consent. But I will say that, first party intent data, it's what people are doing on your platforms. That doesn't mean they aren't doing research elsewhere. And I think we share that frustration that, being in healthcare, it's very niche. Some of the use cases we're serving, some of the problem spaces we're in, and the third party intent data for something like ZoomInfo or others who offer it, it might be too broad. So I think we've been on the fence about any other investment in third party data. There's a lot of people selling third party intent data.
Right, there is. Yeah, it's exploded. Okay. AI and ABM, big opportunity. I'll touch on it very briefly. There's a lot of opportunity here to do personalization at scale. So for example, sucking in data about your personas, taking a sort of generic email and then personalizing it based on that information. That's just one example. So there was a lot of conversation about, how to experiment with that. I would say that it's still very much at the experimentation phase. Quick couple of minutes. Health Tech Marketing Network. You guys are both members of that. Tell us a little bit about what your experience has been with that.
Sure, it's been a wonderful experience. I joined at the beginning of 2024, and it is really a hub to be able to ask questions just like this topic and brainstorm of how do you start? How do you not start? How do you have conversations about topics? It could be ABM. It could be, I don't know how to get my sales team to actually give me the information for an ICP, right? They say, oh, mid-market. That's not an ICP, right? Or how do I get my CEO to align and understand the value of marketing so I can get funded better? These are the kinds of conversations that we can have as a group. So it's been very, very helpful.
Stacey?
Yeah, when you work in marketing, you're used to creating thought leadership spaces for your colleagues, never for yourself. So it's been nice to have what I call a space and a place for those of us that do this for a living, convene, engage, follow up with, and now we have a place for ourselves. So I've gotten a lot out of it. It's great to be with, like-minded folks who are focused on similar goals. But I've learned so much about other parts of healthcare that we're developing solutions for, and how they have different needs, and whether it be health plans or health systems or direct to patient or still B2B. It's a really diverse group, and I've gotten a lot out of it.
Thank you. And just a quick reminder, so what the Health Tech Marketing Network is, it's a private group for CMOs, VPs, directors and above who work exclusively for healthcare technology and services companies. And I put a link if you want to learn more about it down below. Okay, let's go back. So now let's get on to scaling. So the key factors, alignment and buy-in, issue number one. So we'll talk a lot about that in a minute. Taking the tiered approach that we discussed earlier on, recognizing that it's a culture shift. And I love this quote from Adriana Hosford from Artera. Scaling ABM requires not only the right technology and processes, but also a shift in mindset and culture. Companies need to break down silos between marketing and sales and create a collaborative environment focused on driving business impact. And I think if you kind of take away one thing from today, it's that in many regards, ABM is probably change management in marketing for B2B. You'll need to develop a nimble operating model. I love the way that Stacey and Samantha have been talking about the way that they operate. It's very different than your kind of traditional B2B marketing team. A last point here I'll make is that in addition to the investment in technology, you're going to need more content. Because you've got to, if you're personalizing, you're going to need more content that you can personalize and target to address specific needs. So that's something that you'll need to think about as you scale. Okay. Let's talk about building sales and marketing alignment. I want to sort of start off with, I love this quote here from Mark, who also a long-time ABM CMO in health tech marketing. Sales and marketing alignment is critical to the success of any ABM program in healthcare technology, where sales cycles can be long and complex. It's essential that marketing and sales teams work together closely to identify target accounts, develop messaging and content, and coordinate outreach and follow-up. So, before I read the notes, you guys have a lot of perspective on this. Samantha, do you want to talk first about, what your thoughts are on this topic?
Yes, I think we all struggle with getting our organization internally to really understand the value of marketing and where we fit and where we don't fit. And there's nothing worse than saying that's not my job. I don't do that. But I said earlier, marketing is one-to-many and sales is one-to-one. And our role is to do what I consider three pillars: the brand marketing, the solution or product marketing, and then demand marketing. And demand marketing is where ABM fits in. But just involving sales is not going to cut it. You need to have buy-in above that. So whether it's your CMO, your chief revenue officer, your chief growth officer, I'm a big proponent of aligning with the chief strategy officer, because I can always come back to what our 1 year, 3 year strategy is. And when I get friction from the sales team, if you're involving them early and you're doing your planning early, you guys should be aligned. Does this fit in with our strategy? I know that it's a nice and you want it, but it's not part of our strategic roadmap. And we have to prioritize. We cannot be all things. We can't do all the things. So I would, there's nothing, I think all of you have experienced getting in a room with the sales team and having them tell you how to do their job, right? When you can kind of quiet the noise and get above level alignment of the marketing value and where ABM it might be appropriate, you're going to have much more success getting the sales team on board and collaborative.
Stacey, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. Account selection should be a joint activity. So sales has the final call, but reminding them ICP, what are we trying to achieve? Samantha was saying, what's the objective? And when you look at accounts, you want to group them by objective, and all of a sudden that wish list gets a lot smaller. I will say is also be gentle, be kind, and communicate, not always, but like frequent, especially in the early days. We're right now in early stages of one of our first ABM campaigns here at Get Well, and our sales team has been vulnerable with us. They've said, there's a lot of steps. Am I late on something? Am I supposed to be doing something? Because we haven't quite gotten to all of those steps being automated. And though we did say if we could automate it, guys, we could definitely, you wouldn't have to worry about this. But, I think that don't set it and forget it when it comes to the steps you're asking your BDRs or your AEs to do. They're going to need constant reminders. And I think we need to create some empathy for that, because this is new for everyone, including them.
Have you hugged your salesperson today?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. All right. So last couple of slides here. Getting started is the hardest. The old saying, right? In taking that first step is the hardest thing. So here were the top 10 tips that came out of the study. So first and foremost, define clear goals and set expectations. I think both of you clearly emphasize that. Identify a manageable set of target accounts. If we're working on an ABM engagement and with a client, we always, we have to lean in hard early on to get them to sort of accept that just the wish list accounts is not necessarily the right place to start. So spend a lot of time on that. Develop a deep understanding of each target account. I think that's kind of a one-to-one best practice. That's not really practical at one-to-many and one-to-few. But once you get to that more deal-based, that's when you've got to really understand that account so that you're personalizing to that. Align marketing and sales teams around a common strategy. Clearly, we've addressed that. Just talked about that. Secure executive buy-in. That was Samantha's main point. Start small with a pilot program and gradually scale. I'm going to have Stacey and Samantha talk maybe about cast their minds back to when they got started of how they might have piloted it. You're going to need to create personalized content and messaging. I can tell you from experience that doesn't mean getting hyper personalized to start with. It is a more progressive thing, but you're going to have to think about aim towards doing that in a pilot. So try to test out doing that in a pilot. Leverage technology to automate processes such as lead nurturing. You can do as we discussed earlier on. You can do that with your existing tech stack. You don't need to go out and get demand-based or terminus to do that off to start with. And then continuously monitor performance. ABM is also always be measuring. One of the routines that we encourage clients to do is to have a weekly meeting to review the accounts that are in market and review account motion. So how are they actually progressing? And then foster a culture of experimentation and continuous improvement. So, I'd love, Stacey, maybe if you take this first, is how you got started and what advice you'd give.
I think start small. I can tell you here at Get Well, that's exactly what we did last quarter. We started with fewer than 10 accounts, and we kind of tinkered with the model as we went along, because we had to not only execute the program, there was a lot of change management, which you talked about earlier on. So I do think that starting small will also quell any kind of fears or anxieties that we're changing the way we do marketing everywhere. No, we're going to try it. We're going to test, we're going to learn, and then iterate. And so we've taken some of the pilot learnings and we've improved communication, especially between the sales team, the marketing team, and our BDRs for the second pilot that we did, which is a bigger pilot, more formalized. But we learned a lot from that. And I think when you position as a pilot, folks understand it's okay that not everything's going to work right away.
Samantha, how about you? Cast your mind back to that first ABM pilot, or maybe a recent one.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing when I look at this slide and when we were prepping, I read this and said, or not get started on ABM. And here's why is that at the beginning of our time today, I said this, and I really have to go back to Stacy's comment that it is a philosophy, and that if you can pivot and look at your marketing at an account level, you're going to be much better off and have a much better success rate in general of all of the work that you have to do, right? It is a lift to do anything in marketing, right? So instead of getting started with ABM, take a look at these 10 things and get started in what you're just doing today. And are you doing these things? The number one that I would say is start with number one. This to me is in order. And if you don't have number one done, you should not move. You cannot move to the next one. And you're going to probably find that you're probably doing ABM in some form. And what the salespeople really need, as it is usually in my case, always is we want deal-based marketing. We want strategic account support. And great that you're doing the one-to-many account-based marketing and you're segmenting towards whether it is on a solution level, whether it's your revenue integrity or operational management support, and you're already doing that. That's great. Once you do that, you're well on your way.
Thank you. I actually want to pull out a question here from David Mann. This is great, all great conceptually. I keep wanting to run through a detailed example or two of these concepts, including alignment between sales and marketing and account management. I really liked Stacey. You had some thoughts about the use of tools, particularly visualization tools, to build alignment.
Yeah, so there are some things that are inside the ABM platforms. I mentioned the deal story earlier. One that we're using in Rollworks right now is revenue impact and marketing influence reports. So, you can throw everything you want, but if you're not seeing impact, and what does impact mean? To Samantha's point, you have to define what that is. And in our case, it's moving audiences, especially through the ad program, who are unaware of us to what we call aware, or moving them from unaware to what we call sales ready. And there is KPIs attached to all of that. And that's a great thing. Like, we just moved in our pilot program 5 of our target accounts, and we had fewer than 10. So about half of our target accounts moved from unaware to either aware of Get Well or sales ready in 3 weeks. So there is velocity to be found, but it's not going to be closed won in 3 weeks. But yet that's why I say it's a long game. But those kinds of platforms, that's the benefit of investing in them, is they can show you movement on 2 levels. Number one is awareness, and number 2 is actually in your Salesforce stages, whether it's new opportunity creation or these are accounts that have an existing opportunity kind of stuck at the top of the journey or top of the funnel that start to move once you engage with them in this more personalized surround sound way.
Great.
I would say one of the other things, and it seems a little, it's not administrative, but it really helps, is when David, I'm looking at yours of the alignment between sales, marketing, and account management. I visually map out, and I go old school in PowerPoint, and I map out the actual campaign to the point of we've got the ICPs, I've got the target accounts, I got the CFOs, I have the high level value prop, I have a campaign complete brief, but I map out every single message and every single journey touch point. so they know what the overall message is, what the hero content piece that is being served up, how long in between each touch point, if we get them in through LinkedIn, where are they going? I actually create not only a messaging map, but then a journey flow map. I have found that is more helpful to the sales team, that they feel more equipped because they understand what's happening before they get to that point. Then I additionally go through, and every time we are doing that second or third or fourth or fifth segment of said campaign, I'm communicating, over communicating. This email went out this week. Here's where you can find all the assets. Here's where you can find the resources. Here's where you can go into HubSpot and find the tools. And then finally, administrative. But I set the sales team up for success. I give them a bucket of, these are the pieces that you should be following up with. We've already used all this stuff and we've automated so that by the time you get the MQL, here's a selection of assets or email templates that you can leverage for your next step follow-up, because it's going to be assigned to you in 4 days.
This is great. Thank you. This is really, really gold. Okay, so we're just going to wrap things up here. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to get closer to the kind of the next step, the actions that folks can take. So first of all, if you want further reading on it, there's a great resource. Well, I call it a great resource. I hope it's a great resource. We created a resource called we call it ABM Launchpad, ABM Resource Center. You can find it on our website, which is healthlaunchpad.com. I'm going to put the links in there in a second. You can also get our book, which is called Total Customer Growth. It's essentially a kind of a how-to for ABM, but it's written very much from what Stacey and Samantha have said, which is it's about understanding the philosophy of it. So you can kind of do ABM by osmosis. So don't even tell your team you're doing ABM. Just start doing some of the account-centric, customer-centric, buyer journey-oriented best practices there, and you'll be doing ABM before you actually know it. You can also, if you want help with it, you can hire us to help you. So we can help you develop your strategy, your ABM playbook. We can help you get stood up and running with a pilot. We also have a coaching program. So we're launching a masterclass, which will be starting in September. And it's 2 parts. Part 1 will help you develop your strategy. Part 2 will get you stood up with an ABM pilot. It's going to be weekly teaching sessions with also a weekly half-hour office hours too, so that you can progress. And you'll be doing that with your peers. So it'll be a really fun experience. So I'm just going to pop the links to all that in the chat, and there you have it. Okay. Q&A. So wanted to see if there are any questions that I didn't pick up. There was one earlier on, actually, from Hiroko. Has anyone here seen any success from using Capterra or G2?
No, I can't say I've used that. Those are the comparison sites. I can't say I've used it, but perhaps some folks in the audience have, or Samantha.
I have never come across using those solutions at all. We've usually tried to have our Salesforce be the single source of truth and have that information, at least not from comparison, but if we've got a vendor that passed us up, when is that contract up for renewal? Who are the competitor that they're using right now? So I could see that there might be some bias or some concerns, because I think, Adam, you had said that people do not raise their hand of using it. Do they have to buy for it, and then is it biased in general? So I don't know, but I do not have any experience.
Yeah, I have to say, it's sort of, I think it's, frankly, I don't think Capterra and G2 cover healthcare particularly well. And also, for long sales cycles, not sure. It sort of works pretty well for like product-led growth stuff. Yeah. I would check out Elion Health. I actually did a podcast with the CEO of Elion Health a few months ago, and I think what they're trying to do is quite interesting. I think it's elion.health. And Anyway, as we wrap things up, I actually want to close. I think there's a really funny comment here from Jill Pritz. I think she's from Envision Health. A metaphor. She was talking about. This was related to the technologies. A metaphor for the whole healthcare industry is buy IT and then buy IT to make it work well together, which I think is it's kind of hilarious. Yeah. So there we go. So Stacey, Samantha, thank you so much for your time, for your insights today. Boy, do you make my job easier. And secondly, more importantly, you make this an even more valuable and insightful session. So I really am so grateful to you. And thank you everybody for attending and for your questions. I hope you found it useful. Watch your email boxes. You'll be getting the study tomorrow. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. With that, I'm going to wrap things up and shut it down. Stacey and Samantha, don't go immediately. Just stay right there.
Have a great day.